Tonight, from London, a unique television experience. For the first time, leading personalities from the theatre, television, sport, politics and Fleet Street have gathered for an audience with Dame Edna Everage. And among those present for this glittering occasion are Joanna Lumley, Ted Moult, Marjorie Proulx, Tessa Wyatt, Susie Quattro, the Marquis of Bath, Jill Gascoigne, John Conte, and Hazel O'Connor. And Stanley Baxter, Madeline Bell, the Reverend William Badley, Shirley Williams, Ned Sherrin, Rula Lenska, Nigel Dempster, Lord Longford, Frank Ifield, and Simon Williams. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the Barry Humphries Conglomerate and London Weekend Television proudly present the First Lady of World Theatre, Melbourne housewife, mother and megastar, Dame Edna Everage.
Listeners, I feel like a pea. I really do. I feel like a sweet pea. Don't I look gorgeous? This little frock's very hot from my son, Singer. He designed it himself. Still a few little pins in it, as a matter of fact. But it is gorgeous and soft and summery and chiffony, no matter what time of the year or in what part of this funny old war-torn world of ours you're living in at the moment. I know that a lot of you, particularly in the studio audience, are wondering what the dickens you're here for tonight. And I know that a lot of our listeners, or those with vision, viewers, I know that a lot of our viewers are wondering what is their favourite old megastar doing on this little spot on the dial. What's our lovely Dame Edna doing on this channel, you're wondering? And the reason is very, very simple. I spend a lot of time being a modern person in meetings. I'm always in a meeting. When I have people ring, I just say I'm in a meeting. And, I was in a meeting the other day with some of my, what are they called? Little people, little consultants, my little marketing people. And they came up with some pretty spooky statistics. They said to me, you know, you don't just appeal to discriminating and discerning people, Dame Edna. They said, you also appeal to people like London Weekend viewers. And I thought to myself, I must make myself available. I must heed the statistics of my market research people. And that's why I'm here. I'm making myself quite simply available and accessible. Access Edna was the name we nearly gave this funny little experimental show, because that's very much what it is. And you know, what other superstar would put themselves on the line like this? I mean this modestly. But can you think of a single other woman in my position who'd just come out into a studio with a whole lot of little mini celebrities studded all over the place? And, you know, little familiar faces and little not so familiar faces too. And just absolutely subject themselves to relentless interrogation. Tonight the cameras are going to be poking and probing in little parts of me that have never been poked or probed before. It's a risky sort of a thing to do, but I don't mind. Because we Australians are like that. I happen, incidentally, to be an Australian. And we're an open type of person. My life is an open book. But there are some little things, there are little nooks, little crannies of my personality that have never been probed properly. And if you should ask a little question tonight, because questions is the name of the game, the bottom line, to use a little phrase I've picked up, the bottom line is question time. And you might just ask a key question here tonight that could unleash, goodness me, disclosures. There are going to be some bombshells. There are little things I've been hoarding away, and I thought I'd never be telling them, but I've got a feeling I'm going to be tonight. I have little, almost, horrible things, but I don't mind. I feel, you know, things between me and my gynaecologist, I'll put it that way. I will. So I don't think I want to be doing all the talking tonight either. 99% of it perhaps, but no more, because I believe that there should be a little margin for you, darlings. There really, really should be. So without any further ado, I think I should just throw it open. And as little Bette Midler says, fasten your seatbelts. I think it was Bette, one of those wonderful people. So it's sock it to me, audience, please. Question times? Yes?
Dame Edna, welcome back.
Hello, darling.
Hello. On behalf of all us lucky possums, we'd like to know where you've been.
You mean since...
Since last we saw you here.
Oh, yes, I have been keeping a pretty low profile. Hello, and should we know you? Should we? What's your name, darling?
Simon.
Hello, Simon. Of course, isn't that awful, Simon? Oh, Simon D. I wondered what had happened. Anyway, Simon, you're a little survivor, and so am I. You know, that's my new word, survivor. Everyone's a survivor. Simon, I have not been flaunting myself of late because I believe in just occasional little exposure such as this. I believe in just suddenly appearing. Don't you think a lot of superstars, you see them all the time? I've been around, mind you, flitting in and out, little headscarf on in Fenwicks in Bond Street. I have. I've been poking around some of the shops. And it's weird. It gives me a spooky feeling. It gives me a spooky feeling because people don't recognise me. You know, they just think I'm an ordinary old, funny old superstar. They don't realise who I really am. That's where I've been mostly. And I've been working on some of my little things, my other little book or two, and photography I'm into. As you know, little Diane Keaton is taking snaps all over the place now. Linda McCartney, Gina Lollobrigida was the first, wasn't she, listeners? And I've taken it up because I'm doing a book called The Compassionate Camera of Edna Everidge. I'm going to take pictures of disadvantaged people, mainly. In fact, I was hoping to take a few little pictures of you tonight, but a studio audience. But that will make up a wonderful book because it'll be moving. People will say, oh, you know, these are documents. They're not just photographs. They'll say they're documents and statements. I'm hoping people will say that of my work. So I've been active in so many fields, Simon. This is a fragmentary answer to your question. I could go on. If I hope to. For about 55 minutes. Please. Oh, Frank. Frank Ifield, you adorable Australian. A little hand for Frank Ifield.
Your ladyship, can I call you Edna?
Frank. Yes, of course you know.
That's all right.
You can.
It's informal, isn't it? We've all heard you sing, and we've all been astounded by it. And I was just wondering, two questions, in fact. Who taught you to sing, and whether you got your money back?
Oh, Frank, you're being satirical now, you naughty old, wicked old possum you are. Now, I am a self-taught artist. I haven't had official formal training, Frank. I won many years ago in the 1950s in Melbourne, where I come from, which is a gorgeous little place. You know it, Frank.
Oh, I know well.
I won the Lovely Mother Quest, and it was not a singing thing. It was just a naturalness. It was an award for naturalness. And I think I'd still, and I say this, I hope not without too much conceit, I think I could still win it. Because I'm a natural person. I am. I'm a very, very natural, straightforward sort of a person. And I think some people can learn to sing, but mine is a totally untrained voice. And I know, I see you looking at me with disbelief, Frank, but it is an untrained voice.
The very first time you sang, though, I mean, did you...
Is this the third question, Frank?
No. I was just interested, did you sort of make a mega star immediately?
No, I didn't. It wasn't instant mega stardom, Frank, again, and this brings me back. It happens so slowly. People say to me, you know, they come up to me in Harrods, they say, oh, what's it like? They say, what's it like to be an overnight success? And I say, it's not an overnight success, I say to them as they pluck at my frock. I say, you know, it's something that we do. We work on year after year. We polish, we hone, don't we, Frank? But you're still honing at your talent, aren't you? I Aren't you still polishing and buffing away at that little gem that was given to you so many years ago?
Yes.
I see a gorgeous little man here with a little dog collar on who was tweaking at the sky a minute ago. Question from you, darling?
Dear Your Grace, we all know you're one of the world's most marvellous communicators. If I ask you to preach, what would be your text?
Oh, goodness me. This is the penalty, I suppose, for an unrehearsed show. I think I should say, and I think it would be a silly and empty, hollow kind of a show, wouldn't it, if there wasn't a little bit of depth so kindly, if I may say so, introduced by a little person of the cloth there. I've got a little text. I don't know what part of the Bible it's from, but I think it's something like, I translated from the Greek. I think it's, oh Lord, when I get to the end of my tether, I hope you're at the other end. And that's what you know, that's a favourite, that's been a, it has been a, such a comfort to me. Little Russell Harkins here, by the way. Notice I don't know where to associate you with Russell or the BBC or London Weekend. You're hopping about, aren't you? You're a little bit of a maverick, but you're keeping your foot in both camps, which I think is a very... Don't you think? He is, and you know, one of my first appearances on television in Britain was on Russell's show. And he's got a lovely way with it. A lot of people don't get the point of view. But I do. I do. Because it's funny this not getting the point of people. Don't you think? Not getting the point of people. You know, there's no two ways about it. There's plenty of people who don't get the point of me. Not plenty. Hardly any, as a matter of fact. I don't get the point of view. Luckily, isn't it people you don't care for particularly? Generally speaking, don't care much for you either. And I think that's one of the funny little things that helps us get by in this silly old world of ours. I'll edit that little bit out, but because it's a little too philosophical. Yes, the fat man. I know that face of yours too, don't I?
I don't know. I'm always looking for a more exciting alternative to the wheat, oats and barley, and I'm fascinated how you've stimulated the interest in gladioli. I'm wondering, now I'm thinking of growing a few acres, if by the time they come to fruition, they'll be completely vulgarised. In other words...
Oh, darling. I don't think so. Do you know, I've had letters from people saying, florists saying, that people have stopped buying gladdies and sending them to hospitals. Because I have them in my wonderful shows, they're inclined to think there's something wrong with them. Isn't that a funny way of thinking? It really is, isn't it? And so I suppose that's what you mean by vulgarised, that they've become a bit too popular. I've popularised an entire bloom. It was practically unknown, you know, before I came. It is an Australian wildflower. They grow. Honestly, they do. They grow like weeds. You know, when I have to go down to get my letters, we have in Australia letterboxes. At the end of our little front, we have beautiful, so we don't have, our houses aren't all joined together to stop them falling over. Like yours. We have lovely front gardens with lovely paths. And at the end of the path, there's a little Conti. I can see him over there, you adorable tinted person. Now, I've never seen him with his clothes on. I go down to my front gate, and I've got a letterbox in the form of a koala bear with a slit in it. I have. And I look to see if there's any mail, little offers and counter offers, you know, little London What's Name television, all these people clamouring, Arts Council, begging me to take over this and that. And I have to hack my way through a forest of gladdies, I do, because overnight they grow up. I feel like the Sleeping Beauty surrounded by these things. I don't know how you'd grow them. You've probably got green thumbs or whatever.
I thought there was a secret language which I don't know about.
Well, there is. I think you've got to love a flower. Just as you've got to, if anything's going to grow, if anything's going to prosper, I think even a little relationship with an audience, I think there's got to be the feeling of a certain amount of warmth and niceness about it, don't you? I think niceness is the bottom line. It is. It's the name of the game, isn't it, Your Grace? I think it is. I really do. I think it is. And flowers feel it. I know that. I've seen glads giving me a funny old-fashioned look when I have when I've not been in the mood for them. I'm not always in. Look, I've got alternative flowers here. I never thought that'd happen. Trust London Weekend to get it a bit wrong. Incidentally, don't you love this set, viewers? Apparently it's based on Mussolini's lounge room. I believe... Looking at this chair, which is Art Deco, of course, my son really introduced Art Deco. My son, Kenny. But I don't think this is the real thing. I think this could be Art Deco. I think it could be. Because I think it might have been made in Italy. And, you know, I went down to Pompeii, which is fascinating. And I had a look. I've never been to Pompeii. And, you know, as you know, that Mount Edna, my namesake, exploded. And when it exploded and all the pumice stones buried all those people, it was a bit... Pompeii was the London of its time, you know. Apparently it was. And when I was looking around, it was, you know, you saw all these people lying around in a state of total inertia. And the comparison was absolutely uncanny. The people were just sort of lying in parallel. Well, of course, they were mummies, practically. And what they did, the archaeologists used to come when they were looking for the bit of pumice, rub off the ciggy stains. They'd come and they'd dig. Honestly, they would. In Pompeii, I've just been there. It's fresh in the mind. They'd dig and they'd find these poor little old Pompeians lying around and they'd put a little hole in their heads and fill them up with plaster of Paris and they'd turn like Madame Tussauds, only realistic. And they'd be lying around there. And it occurs to me, wouldn't it be spooky? Oh, isn't it a horrible thing to say? But wouldn't it be ghastly if Hampstead exploded or whatever's the nearest volcano to here? I think it is. Mount Hampstead is an extinct... Well, it's thought to be extinct, but I think it's dormant. I think it is. It blew up, the pumice stones came over here, and we were all buried, and centuries, millions of years later, people dug us all up. They'd wonder what the dickens we were doing, didn't they? They would say you were there. They'd say, what? It must be a religious service. They'd say, these people are worshipping a goddess, and they would... But you know... They wouldn't be too far from the truth either, would they? Don't know how I got onto that subject. Hazel.
Have you ever fallen foul of this business, i.e. stripping for fame or the casting catch?
Stripping for fame? Well, look, I have been approached. A person did approach me. A person who runs, I'm not going to say it, it is a place in Soho, and it's supposed to be quite, you know, rather a sort of high-class type of a place. And he did ask me to be an attraction there. And I said, Paul, no. I said, I have a mind, I have a body, and I try to keep them as far apart as possible.
Dame Edna, following on from your last question, it's quite obvious to all of us that you're in amazing physical shape. I'd just like to know how it is that you manage it. I mean, do you play ping pong or do you play tennis or what do you do?
Windsurf. I do. I love windsurfing and I can do it in the Dorchester. All I do is stand there in a negligee and turn on the hairdryer. I do. You can get the illusion of it. Depending, I mean, you can put the hairdryer more or less wherever you like. You can. And believe me, ladies, it is absolutely. I mean, it beats standing on your head in the ladies' room. So I hate those things you've got to nudge with your elbow, don't you? Mind you, I think they're better than towels. I think they're better than those yucky old roller towels, don't you? Don't you hate it when you have to go into the bathroom, as the Americans call it? And don't you hate it when you have to pop in there and there's a towel, one of those roller machines, Lord Longford. And you've probably got them in the House of Lords, and you go in there and it's a horrible, squidged up thing, all black, and you don't want to use it. You go out with your hands dripping instead, and someone immediately wants to shake your hand or something. And you've just come out of there and they wonder what the dickens it is. I prefer the little rush of hot air, but I'm a windsurfer, and it's within that my health comes from. I don't have time for a bit of jogging. Jackie Kennedy and I used to do a lot of jogging. I introduced her to that. But that's about all. I've got a bicycle in my little bathroom, and I do a little bit of that, but I've neglected it slightly of late. Let's have a commercial break. Been informed that the ratings are soaring for this show. And everyone in the United Kingdom, without exception, is watching at the moment. Isn't this amazing? Aren't you be lucky to be here? It's cunning. Now, this is an Edna-thon, isn't it? You might call it. It's not a telethon, it's an Edna-thon. It really is. And, well, there again, here am I just sharing my experience, hope and strength with my public. No more can I. I've been given so much in this life. The least I can do is to give a little bit away to keep it. That's my motto. That's what I'd say if I had a little sermon to give. As I think I'm going to be asked, too, by a little sky pilot sitting in the audience. Yes?
I wonder if you ever thought of going into politics and raising the whole tone of public life.
I have. You've got the Iron Lady in power in England at the moment. I'm more or less the aluminium lady, you could call me. Or the Formica lady, perhaps. Because though I'm tough, I'm a little bit of softness about me, and I think I'm a bit too soft and a little bit too caring. I think a little bit too soft, a little bit too caring to go into that hard old world of politics. In my job, you see, I have to be aloof from politics. So many people model themselves on me. I see women in the street. It's almost like I think, oh, what's that mirror doing there? It's women. Not always women either. Shall we say it's members of the human race, modelling themselves, some of them pitifully sick, modelling themselves on me. It is. They're like clones. That's the bottom line of it. That's the bottom line of it. Clones they are. And so because people follow me so scrupulously, I have to keep, as far as I can, detached from the political life of Britain. I'm a bit like Margaret Thatcher in that respect. But I'd be called in for an emergency. I would. I'd be a bit like sort of a Kissinger figure in the background, and people would say, "Oh, I bet Dame Edna was behind that bit of legislation." You know? Oh. Yes, Squirrel. Oh, Lord Bath. Yes, darling.
Dame Edna, as you may remember, about 2 years ago, we visited that wonderful country, Australia, and had the privilege of seeing you in your show. I was just felt, though, however, that, how could I put it, that members of the aristocracy and stately homes were rather thin on the ground.
My home, Everidge Hall, is a stately home. And you know, how often does this happen, that a living person has their home turned into a showplace, into a shrine? This is uncanny. It's giving me little goose pimples, as a matter of fact. In fact, they're getting a bit sharp. I could ladder my frock on them. Because, you know, my home is... It's not of the size of yours. I haven't got the old little vintage cars and lions and tigers, darling, but it is... Well, there's an old Oldsmobile in the garage, as a matter of fact, but it's on blocks. Yes, indeed, you are, by the looks of it. However, we keep a little wing, well, spare bedroom, which is more or less a wing, just in case, you know, my husband ever gets well and wants to go back there, but I don't like...
Dame Edna.
Yes?
Don't you think that your continued absence from your husband Norm's bedside, hospital bedside, may I add, is a threat to your own marriage?
You know, when I said I wanted any question you cared to ask me. I was hoping that the subject of Norm wasn't going to crop up. Because things are not as they have been with my husband, and this is a funny little spooky bit of the show that's coming up now. Because my husband has been in touch with legal people. And there's a silly little document that's been served on me about desertion. Now, I think this is tragic, that the average marriage is on the rocks. And I never thought I'd say that. Given that man everything. A silicon chip prostate. He has. I've pumped money and I've pumped money into that man. The drip, even his bedside, even his saline drippers from Asprey's. It is. I've done everything I can for Norm. The top medical people have been prodding away at him for years. And, you know, he's a lot more mobile than he has made out to me. Of course, I put him on the telex machine. He can contact me any time he likes. Well, he can't, actually, but I can contact him. And I'm in touch with the sister, and that's, I'm afraid, what probably the main trouble is, because my husband has fallen into the hands of an unscrupulous woman. And I can say this now because I know he hasn't got the telly at his present condition. Nurse Thelma Younghusband is the person who's mainly in charge of the things that happen to my husband at the moment. And she is working on old Norm, and she's been working on his mind. He's a tool in her hands, I can tell you that, Russell. My husband is every night at blanket bath time she works on that man. She's been poisoning his mind against me, and she's been making him write a book. And I hope we can repair this terrible rift, because I'm not, particularly in the present state, because I'm expecting a menopause baby. I have to elaborate that, because I don't want you looking at my figure. It's not going to happen that way. I was in the States and I realised this got some sort of a bank, a celebrity sperm bank you can go to. Isn't that a horrible thought? But it's true. And you could go there, you could have a Nobel Prize winner's kiddie. Or indeed you could have Warren Beatty's kiddie. Mind you, everyone's had that. However, you could. The fact of the matter is that I was toying with the idea of having this little creature, you know, and I thought it can all be done scientifically. You don't have to change my frocks or anything like that. It's all happening in the laboratories, and they just sort of thrust it into my hand, and there'll be a little bit of publicity. I'll be popping up in little Nigel's column. Hello, darling. It just saw little Nigel then. So let's hope all this works out. But I do object to something that appeared in one of your columns recently about me and my hairdresser on the Costa Smeralda. I feel I should say this, because I've always liked you. I know you're a little fellow Australian. You've worked and schemed to get a few little connections over here. However, I saw something. I mean, this could have upset Norm terribly if it had got to him, because I have a hairdresser called, his name is Samson, as a matter of fact. Though in the salon they call him Delilah. And he gives me a little massage, Hazel, you know. He gives me a little work over a little scapulae he works on with his little fingers. He's got a wonderful sort of voile shirt open to the navel, and a little medallion round his neck. He's a darling. A bit of a Latin-looking type, and he was a friend of my son Kenny, as a matter of fact, introduced me to him. And we travel around together, and he's a great comfort to me. He's a chiropodist as well. You know, if he's not working on one end of me, he's working on the other. And you had to bring that up, and you said such poisonous things. I was very, very disappointed. I thought a Perth boy, too. Darling, yes, little boy there.
Dame Edna, do you watch Dallas?
Dallas watches me. Hello, Russell Harty.
You've thrown... Dame Edna, you've thrown me into some confusion by the use of the word menopause and a menopause baby, because when you were first on my show...
I shocked a lot of people.
Yes. But when you were first on my show and nobody knew who you were, you did sort of perspire... You were at that time, I think, in your country called Going Round Catherine's Corner, and you were sort of glowing a lot at that time, and I thought you probably were suffering at that time. I wonder if you'd like to take this opportunity of thanking me for the kind of help that
It's no show without punch, is it, Russell Hartley? I heard you complaining in the paper the other day that London Weekend hadn't given you a farewell present. You're into gratitude in a big way, aren't you, darling? You expect thanks for everything. Well, I did thank him, didn't I, viewers? I did thank him. I did say thank you to you, Russell, for doing that little show. You probably were so busy thinking of your question you didn't even hear me. I don't know about those references to something that happens to we women folk. Did you think that was tasteful? I didn't. I mean, I think there are ways of talking about our processes and our drives and our juices, and there are ways you don't. I'm sorry. Am I old-fashioned? I think I might be. Lord Longford.
Well, would you agree we ought to take a much tougher line with pornography?
Well, I have so little to do with it, Lord Longford. I do. Some of it, I must admit, is a bit tame and could be a bit tougher. This macho thing that I've got into now. You know, my little hairdresser's introduced me to a way of life I never thought was possible. If ever you want a trim, I'll send him round here, darling. In Australia, of course, we don't have a problem with it because it's not there. People don't even know about it. They don't need it. They've got the kangaroos and They have Dame Nature all the time, you know, just in their back gardens. They just look out the window and they can, you know, they're free to see it. It's very difficult to censor that type of thing. Yes, a pretty little lass. Hello, darling. Aren't you pretty as a picture?
Thank you.
Oh, I love your little karate chops, too.
Dame Edna, I believe one of your sons is married. How do you get on with your daughter-in-law?
I don't. I should say this, and I don't mean this uncharitably, Your Grace. Joylene lives in England. She lives in a part which viewers probably watching this in Germany or in Japan won't know what I'm talking about, but we're in a space capsule. If this goes in a time capsule, people aren't going to know what dickens we're talking about. They'll know me. They'll know who I am from old coins and things. My daughter-in-law, Joylene, lives in a suburb called Clapham. Now, she thinks it's fashionable. It's pitiful, really. She's waiting for it to become fashionable. She's an old woman, I think, before that ever happens. She's into a thing called high-tech. Have you ever heard of that? High-tech is when you leave all your conduits exposed. She's got an old manhole cover as a butter dish. Isn't that pathetic? She does. She has her breakfast off a bit of galvanised iron. You know those things outside skyscrapers which painters travel up and down on? They pull out the staircase and you go up and down on that. Someone pulls a chain and they all wear crash helmets. It's called high-tech. It's pitiful, honestly. Give me old Art Deco any day of the week. But she's there with a little hitachi. That's what they call it, a little hibachi, like a barbecue. And on a little patio, the smell of her T-bones wafting over the underprivileged fences of Clapham. And, you know, she's so superior with me, that girl. It's, of course, I suppose it's difficult marrying a superstar's son. I don't want to say too much more about Joyanne because she might be watching, and she does try. She makes a pitiful effort to please me. A lot of people like her. A lot of people think she's quite attractive. I just can't see it, that's all. One more question before our little commercial break.
Dame Edna, as you're one of the greatest, if not the greatest, writer of the 20th century, would you like to reveal to us what your favourite bedside reading is?
Well, I love the novels of Melvyn Bragg. I really do. I see Melvyn here, who's come from Cumbria, which is a little island off the coast. Melvyn has written 12 books. Has anyone here read any of them? Yes? Little boys there, don't write him off the minute, Melvin. Or we'll never catch up, will we, Possums? Darling, I must go over there and see you. Hello, viewers. Hello, listeners, too. This is Dame Edna Everidge for station identification. This is not so much a show, to use an old Ned Sheeran expression. Not so much a show, but a time capsule. This is going to go into the archives. It's going to be looked at in millions of years' time. It's an interesting thing. It's part of technology creeping into my life. There's a little man nodding there. Nodding off, I think.
Dame Edna, in the early 60s, when you played the establishment with an audience of about 7 and only one dress, were times very hard for you then?
You've got a memory like an elephant, haven't you? You know, many years ago, there was this little place called the Establishment in London. It was, what was a little cubby hole, wasn't it, designed by Sean Kenny? It was a long, narrow thing. You thought it was the passage to something, but that was it. And goodness me, what a passage to success it was, wasn't it? Because little Ned Sheeran struggled along there for many, many moons. Before he became the ubiquitous figure he is today. And David Frost, of course, started off there. And you know, it was one of my first little starting places, as you first said, and how right you are, Ned, that my following was pitifully small.
Have you still got the dress?
I've still got the frock, as I prefer to call it. Frock is Australian for dress. And I've still got it. And you know, as a matter of fact, the Victoria and Albert Museum, viewers, have asked for a lot of my old cossies, and they're going to have a beautiful section showing fashions, Australian women's fashions through the ages, as exemplified by my gorgeous frocks, Ned. And so just as well I didn't give them to you as you once requested. I don't forget much either, Ned. And now a question from a very adorable woman, Marjorie Proops. Hello, darling.
Tell me, you must have a lot of problems in your life. Would you like to talk to me about them?
Well, I have problems. I've talked about a few. I've talked about the little heartbreak with Norm, and it is a heartbreak, and I wasn't going to discuss it, but I just thought I'd let it all hang out, Marge.
Yeah.
I have written to you. Do you know that? I have written to you. You've answered on a number of aliases. Wombat. I'm Wombat. Did you know that? You remember the ones about the hysterectomy? They were all from me. Most of my little queries you said, I think you'd better speak to your medical advisor about it. They're mainly your answers to me. But there are questions about human relationships too, Marjorie. And you know, you've got a sense of responsibility. I can tell that when I read you. And haven't you got your imitators? Who hasn't it so far, unfortunately? On this network. But, as a matter of fact, I believe people do me at parties. Did you know that? You'd think they'd let me know, at least. Can you imagine girls being done at parties and not even being there? I'm very physical. I'm a very sensuous person, Marjorie. Very, very sensuous. And I have these feelings, and I've been deprived of a good deal of the physical side of marriage for a long time. I have. Wombat's never told you that, has she? But I have, and I've missed darling old Norm. And he's been there being consoled by this little hussy, this little type. Now, when I seek a little bit of consolation under the blower of a delightful hairdresser, I've been pilloried in little Nigel's poison pen column. I don't think it's fair. Anyway, Marjorie, I'm very pleased, and you are the acceptable face you are of journalism. May I say that? And you're so much sweeter than your photographs. You really are. Isn't she? Because Marjorie is grey in the photographs I've got of her. She's grey and black and with little spots all over her. But you've got lovely tonings when I see you in the flesh. And, of course, you've got the face furniture. Marjorie Proops likes the glasses, viewers. She does face furniture, I call it. And, you know, I do. I think the eyes are the window of the soul, and I think the glasses are the Venetians. I think they are. I like the Venetians. I frame my eyes. I do. I've got so many different pairs. You will favour the one style, don't you, Marge? Let's have a little spectacle swapping session, shall we? We can make a little spectacle of ourselves after the show.
Apart from your menopausal baby, are there any other ambitions you still wish to fulfill?
Please remember that this is hypothetical, this little kitty. I'm just toying with it. I'm thinking about it, please.
Is there anything else
Ambitions.
you'd like to do?
Yes, I've got an ambition. Does this sound a little bit arty-crafty? I'd like to be discovered by Bernard Levine. Do you know, anyone here know Bernard Levine or heard of him? He's very good. He's got a typewriter and he taps away, and he's really got the gift of words. He's a wordsmith, viewers. And he opens our eyes to things like Mahler, Chopin, and Dickens he's discovered. And, you know, he makes these wonderful discoveries. It opens our eyes to wonderful new experiences. How thankful we must be. Think of those people who must have the rights to Dickens books thinking, oh, what a relief, this little Bernard Levine's coming. Or all those shops think, we've got this terrible, look, these slow movers, these Wagner and Mahler records, how are we going to sell them? Suddenly in the paper appears a little article about, thank goodness, and then the demand starts. Of course, what's he going to discover next? That's what I want to know. Max Wall, the Beatles, probably. Of this little tawny creature. What's your name?
Ruler.
What?
Ruler.
Ruler. I know you from one of the shows, don't I? Crossroads. Hello, darling. Hello, Ruler.
Hello.
You're adorable, too, with a little hint, is it, of Polish in you?
That's right, yes.
Oh, I'd love to have a bit of Pole in me. Tell me this, darling. What's the matter with these people?
I was just wondering, Dame Edna, looking at your wonderful
gorgeous
outfit
bone
tonight.
structure, Ruler. Attractive woman. Are you attached, are you?
Yes, I am.
I'd love to cuddle you. I mean that in a normal and loving way. It may surprise you, Lord Longford, to hear that. But I do.
I was just wondering, as you're so obviously a leader in the fashion world, what your predictions are for the 80s.
My predictions for the 80s in the fashion field? Well, my son, Kenny, designs most of my clothes. And as I say, this is hot off his singer. It is. It's this little sweet pea look that I introduced at the beginning of this show that you've been feasting your eyes on. And I introduced the denim look. I introduced the tennis, the sporty look, Ruler. And I love that. What's that? A sort of a
it's a
Brillo pad. Is it? What is it? A 20s
it's
thing?
It's a 20s flapper dress.
It's beautiful. Does it scratch you, Ruler?
No. My husband calls it my chainmail.
He calls it that, does he? What an adorable sense of humour he must. I think the family that laughs together stays together, don't you? I think so. I must say, whenever I see Norm, I burst out laughing. However, I think we'll be together, don't you? Don't you? Yeah! However, yes, final question.
Could I ask you a question about Australian sportsmen? Because you must know so many over the years of the great Australian sportsmen. Why are they so successful and so prominent? What's their secret?
I think it's the food, the open-air life, the juicy steaks, the diet, the sunshine, and the total absence of any kind of intellectual distractions. And now, I'm going... Sorry, Australia! I didn't mean to say that. That was me. Please, that was me being a bit satirical. I didn't mean that a bit. You know it too, don't you? Ruler Lenska, an adorable little Pole, if ever I saw one. Mention my clothes. I'm a style setter. I've got a frock back there. Have you got a second if I slip into it? Can I? Slip into my gorgeous frock. I'll be back in a minute. change ruler. Isn't it gorgeous? This is going to be the look. You're going to see women just like this. It's hard to believe that you are. I don't know how it all started. Goodness knows. I suppose I had a little phone call from little Bo Derek, practically an unknown. I get the calls, little Streep. Little Merrill rings me up. Streep, isn't it? It's a funny name when you think of it. Streep, isn't it? Streep. Yeah, can you imagine your gynecologist saying, I'm afraid it's Streep? I think so. It's a bit like that. I don't mean that to speak, but it sounds a bit like a funny thing that could go wrong with you. Not with you, Russell, but with some of us. Little Bo rang me up and she said one of these days, and I said, I'm sorry, I just can't place you. She reminded me of a little Costa Smeralda meeting of some kind. And she said, I'm doing a show with a dwarf. She said, I can't think what to wear. So I had a few ideas, a sort of ethnic sort of a thing. And I came up with this kind of look, you know. I call it my fringe benefits, as a matter of fact. However, that's the look, and I thought you'd like to see it. I'd like to conclude by saying something, and I don't want this to seem silly and sentimental, but I'd like to say that if any of you have thought that this is a kind of one-woman virtuoso thing, it isn't. And so I want to say something about that in my own little way. And I think I'm going to say it musically, with the aid of this adorable ethnic-looking person sitting here. It's little Laurie Holloway, ladies and gentlemen, at the keyboard. Thank you, darling. A cheering crowd at my stage door, an audience crying out for more. That's what my public means to me. The loyal fans who queue for hours, the cards, the telegrams, and the flowers. That's what my public means to me. You need to have a pretty humble attitude when you see little faces looking up, grotesque with gratitude. But from tiny tots to grannies, I love all your nooks and crannies. That's what my public means to me. The Queen's birthday honours list, this lovely Cartier on my wrist. That's what my public means to me. A limousine, a sable coat, the lump that's rising in my throat. That's what my public means to me. Superstars may come and go, but there's no other that folks identify with their own mother. To think there's people in this room who wish they'd sprung out of my womb. That's what my public means to me. The David Hockneys on the wall, the royal visitors who call. That's what Is this an encore? Now the time has come to part. There's an ache inside my heart. That's what my public do to me. Though little gnolls squirt their poison, I can feel my eyelids moisten, 'cause I know that my public still stays true to me. I may be forced to live in a tax haven, but I know I'm home when I see all those gladdies waving. And I'm going to shake them when they wave their glad and shake them. That's what the possums do to me. That's what you do to me.